Hi folks, this is a revision video of calculating percentages without a calculator. This is for both level 1 and level 2 functional skills maths. So what we're going to be doing in here, for level 1 we've got to find the percentages in multiples of 5%, and level 2 it can be any percentage. So for example, it could be 19%, something really awkward. How we're going to do this, we're going to make sure that basically you can find 10% and 1%, and from those values we can make up any percentage we need. Why do we need to do this? Because in the non-calculator paper, and even in the calculator one, you've got to compare FDP, fractions, decimals and percentages. Right, so before we go ahead and do that, let's make sure that we can find 10% of any value. This is level 1 and level 2. So when we're dividing by 10, we're moving the decimal point one place value to the left. Okay, so we've done this many times before. So there's no decimal point here, but imagine we're trying to find 10% of 40. So imagine that the decimal point is at the end, and we're just going to move in one place value, so 10% equals 4. You can also put 4.0. Let's try the next one. 10% of 120. Yes, you could just say knock off the 0, but as you'll see in the next one, we don't have a 0 at the end, so use that idea of there's a decimal point at the end there and move it in one place value, so that would be 12. And our last example here is find 10% of 38. Imagine the decimal point is here, move it in one place value, so that gives you 3.8. One further note on that, if you had to find 10% of say 56.4, we'll use the existing decimal point. We don't have to go to the end, we use the one that is there, and we just again go in by one place value, so that would give you 5.64. Okay, you shouldn't have to do that on the non-calculator paper for level 1 anyway. For level 2 you need to know 1%, but this is handy for level 1s as well. This time we are moving the place value. We're still moving it to the left, but we're doing it by 2 jumps. So here we have 300. There's no decimal point. Imagine it's at the end. We're going 1, 2. So it's here. So it's 3. You can also put 3.00, but since there's nothing in those, we don't need to worry about it. 1% of 1,356. There's no decimal point. Let's move it 1, 2. Place value goes. The decimal point goes there, so it's 13.56. 1% of 243. Move it in 1, 2. It goes there. And 1% of 78. There's no decimal point. Let's put it there. We've got to move in 2 place values, 1, 2. So it goes here before the 7. So we're going to need to put 0.78. Let's also just make sure if we have to find 1% of something like 328.2, we are using the existing decimal point to go 1, 2. So it now becomes here 3.282. Okay, hope you're okay with that. Now actually putting the percentages together, so here is an example of a percentage cloud, which we've done in class before. As long as we can find all of these percentages, 10, 5, 50, 25, 75 for level 1, and then the additional 1% for level 2, we can make up any percentage. So let's go for it. This 740 equals 100%. So we want to find 10% first of 740. Well, before we just divided by 10, so that will give us 74. Now 5% is actually half of 10%. So we find that by dividing it by 2, which would give us 37. If you're not so sure without a calculator, because this is a little bit of an awkward number, you could break it up. Let me just use a different colour pen. You could break up 74 and say, well, if I break it up into 70 and 4, if I find half of those values and then add those together, that will give me 37. Let's keep going. 50% is exactly half of 100, so we're going to divide that value by 2. That gives us 370. Note the link between 5% and 50%. It is exactly 10 times larger. 25% is actually half of 50%, so we're just going to have to divide the 50% by 2. So 370 divided by 2 gives us 185. Again, if you weren't sure how to do that because of the awkward numbers, split it up into 300 and 70. Well, half of 300 is 150, half of 70 is 35, and then we add these together and that gives us 185. Let's go back here. Now 75 is made up of 50% add 25%, so 50% is 370, 25% is 185, and then we just add these together, so that will give us 5, that's 15, and that's 5. So 75% is 555. Last but not least, the 1% we're dividing by 100, so it's at the end, going two place values, 1, 2, that will give us 7.4. So those are our percentages that we're going to need. Now, in terms of what questions will they ask me in the non-calculator exam, this is what a level 1 would look like. What if we wanted a percentage like 35%? Well, 35%, we're going to make it up out of these. So we can make, just thinking what is the quickest way, probably doing a bit of adding. So we can make up 35% by taking a 10%, a 10%, and a 10%. If we add them all together, that will give us 30, and we're going to add a 5% on top, and all of that comes to 35%. Let's put the actual values in. So it's 74, add 74, add 74, and the 5% is 37, and when we add that all together it will come to 259. Okay, so 259 is 35%. A level 2 one would be, what if we wanted a percentage like 17%? So making you use that 1%. So 17%, the easiest way to make it up is doing a 10%, a 5%, another 1%, and another 1%. Oh, my plus sign went a little bit funny then, didn't it? Let's get rid of that part there. There we go. Add them all together, we're going to get 17%. So let's put the actual values in. So 10% is 74, 5% is 37, 1% is 7.4, so make sure you place this correctly, and 7.4. Since they have a decimal point, I'm going to add a 0.0 into those, add them all together, that gives you an 8, that gives you a 25, 2 there, and a 12. So 125.8 is the answer to what is 70% of 740. Okay, I'm going to let you try one as well. So in this video, here is the next set of questions for you to try. So we're talking now 1660, that is the 100% value. So you've got to find out what's 10, 5, 50, 25, 75, and 1. And then level 1's, what is 95%? Level 2, what is 43? So pause the video, have a go by yourself. Hopefully you've done that, and I'm now going to show you the answers. So here are the numbers for the percentage cloud. And for the level 1 95%, There's actually two ways you could do this. So you can find 95%. So here in red, I found what 10% was, I found what 5% was, and I've said, well, 90% is 10% times 9. Well, you could have added it 9 times to give you 1,494, and then we added a 9% on. So 95% is 1,577. That's a really hard one actually that I've given you. The alternative way to do it is to just take 5% away from 100 to give you 95. That's a much easier way of doing it. So 1,577. That's actually quite cruel of me, I think, for level 1. Level 2, what is 43%? So 10% is 166. If I times it by 4, I get 664. You could have added it 4 times. And then I need to find 3%. So I've done 1% times 3. So this is where you're now multiplying your decimals. However, you could have added it 3 times, but altogether it should be 713.8. And just to run all the way back through the beginning, those were our objectives that we needed to do, which I think we've done. So happy percentaging.